lose it. All right, here we go.
All right. Welcome, ladies. All right. Today's going to be a little bit fun. We've talked about this subject before, but everybody needs to hear it from a different person and a different perspective. So we brought our good friend, Stephanie Fusnik, on. I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell us a little bit more about her and her passion. So, Stephanie?
Yeah. So I have been in the health and fitness field for it's going to be 11 years now, which is insane. But I started off wanting to be a phys ed teacher, got into personal training right away, fell in love with chronic disease like osteoporosis, heart disease, strokes, cardio, everything. I've worked with pretty much everything at this point. Did grad school, continued training during that, was working with the health region, running all the chronic disease exercise management programs. Loved that, was doing nutrition on the side during all that kind of stuff, did my osteo schooling as well. And then just found a passion for metabolism and hormones and all that kind of stuff, because I was working with people who were doing all the right things, eating less, moving more, were eating 1,500 calories and they were 300 pounds and not losing weight. And they've been doing that for years. So for me, I was like, that clearly isn't the problem. There's something else going on. Let's dig deep into this. So fell in love with metabolism after that. And then I started working with a lot of women who were going through perimenopause and menopause. And that was a whole brand new ball game, completely different. The things that you were trying before doesn't work. Now that's the story we always hear. It's man, before it was easier for me to lose weight, and now I'm just stuck. Nothing's working. I'm eating less, moving more, and I just feel terrible, and nothing seems to be working. So that's where I really got into research and really dedicated my entire career towards this, and adjusting how exercise needs to change, how your nutrition has to change, all that kind of stuff, because your body is completely different once your hormones start to change, and what you were doing before just isn't going to work. So that's kind of where I got into this, and now it's my passion, and I'm very happy I get to make a career out of this.
I love it. I love your story. I always love to listen to it. So, so I know a lot of our ladies have a tendency to talk about belly fat. All right. How during this time of my life, how do I lose this darn belly fat? All right. And I know I've listened to you talk about it several times. And so if you could just go a little bit into first, okay, what are some symptoms I would be feeling going into perimenopause or menopause?
Yeah, for sure. So everyone always talks about the menopause belly. So I'll get to that in a little bit, but what your symptoms are going to, what symptoms you experience is really going to differ based on what hormones are fluctuating. So I'll touch on estrogen a little bit here first. So low estrogen and high estrogen levels, or estrogen dominance, tend to have very similar symptoms, which makes it very hard to diagnose without actually getting tested. But for example, low estrogen is dry skin, weak, brittle bones, trouble concentrating, irritability, mood swings, moodiness, tender breasts, vaginal dryness, hot flashes, night sweats, irregular periods or no periods at all, weight gain, particularly in the belly and the hips, headaches, decreased sex drive, fatigue and trouble sleeping, insulin resistance and sugar cravings. Whereas high estrogen levels or estrogen dominance tends to be more sugar cravings, belly fat accumulation again. You're going to experience more bloating, swelling, and tenderness of the breasts. Again, decreased sex drive. Again, irregular periods, increased or bad symptoms of PMS, headaches, moodiness, weight gain or weight loss resistance, sleepiness and fatigue, memory problems, anxiety, night sweats. So you can see that there's a lot of crossover between high and low estrogen level symptoms. So that's one thing to be aware of. And then when progesterone drops, we're also going to see things like heavy bleeding, weight gain or trouble losing weight, decreased sex drive, mood swings, depression, PMS, irregular menstrual cycle, breast tenderness, fibrotic breasts, fibroids, gallbladder problems, low libido, hot flashes, migraines, headaches, depression, anxiety, other mood things. So all those varying hormone levels have very similar symptoms. So when you start experiencing those things, it can be hormone changes because of perimenopause and menopause. But those are all also very common with eating too low calorie or high levels of cortisol as well. So there's a lot of things to kind of think about. Also when estrogen decreases, you're going to see more insulin resistance. So you're going to have bigger swings in blood sugars. There's so many things that contribute, and cortisol is the one thing that kind of controls everything. There's cortisol, controls insulin, which also controls progesterone and thyroid and estrogen, testosterone. Like, so there's a hierarchy. So like, yes, we can try HRT and stuff like that to help with symptom management, but it's not actually fixing the problem, which is higher up. So you're basically just plugging holes. And as soon as you go off of it, because a lot of people can't stay on it long term, or it's not an option because of estrogen dominant cancers. Then you see other issues where like, okay, we actually need to address the root cause, because like this isn't working. Like we're just trying to plug the holes and the water's still coming up. So we need to like actually address the root cause, which typically is going to be like cortisol and insulin resistance.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sounds like me. Okay. I'm working on it. All right. So can you go into like what kinds of foods might help someone that is in perimenopause or menopause or having those night hot flashes? Sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So typically when we're experiencing those things, it is because of high levels of cortisol. So like, I want to just touch on that first. Like when our cortisol levels are higher, what happens is like our cortisol needs somewhere to go. We have 4 times the receptors for cortisol and belly fat than anywhere else in our body. So that's why it's stubborn. That's why it's the last place we tend to lose weight, because if we're not addressing stressors, we can't lose belly fat. People are like, well, I can't reduce stress from my life. That's completely valid and very true. But there are things that you can adjust through nutrition to help you buffer, because what happens is when we go through perimenopause and menopause, estrogen and progesterone drop. We lose the buffer to deal with stress. So now the little things that didn't really get under our skin or things like that now produce way more cortisol than we used to. We see more inflammation. We see more insulin resistance, more irritability. We're going to see a decreased ability to build muscle mass, maintain bone density. All these things happen as estrogen decreases. And then if we're more sensitive to those stressors, so all of that becomes like exponentially higher just because of that drop in our hormone levels. So we need to do what we can to balance out those hormone levels or mitigate that stress response as much as we can. And one of the best ways to do this is by eating your fucking carbs. So carbohydrates, super, super important. People are super scared of it. But actually there's studies that show like women who were going through perimenopause and menopause, same calorie intake. One group had keto diet, so low carb. The other one had a more balanced diet. The group that had the keto diet actually had significantly reduced thyroid function, which already happens during perimenopause and menopause. Because when those cortisol levels are really high, it actually like makes your body stop producing TSH to send the signal to the thyroid to produce thyroid hormone. So now it's getting distracted by the adrenals, and now your cortisol levels are going to be higher, and now thyroid production is going to be decreased. We know thyroid function is responsible for like metabolism and things like that as well, controlling weight. So that's an issue all on its own. So by increasing our carbohydrate intake, we're actually going to see improved thyroid function. So that's really important. It's also going to help bring those cortisol levels down. So that's going to help with inflammation, which people are like, that's not true. Yes, it is. I'm saying like, have your rice, have your potatoes, have your quinoa, have some bread, have some pasta. I'm not saying like, just shove a million donuts in yourself to get some carbs, which you can have donuts. I love it. It's a staple in my diet. I will never give them up. But like carbohydrates are going to be super, super important for that. It's also going to help you with your gut health, because when your cortisol levels are really high, you're going to see blood flow go away from your gut. Like we're in fight or flight, our body is either getting ready to fight the bear or run away from the bear. So then digestion slows down, libido stops, because like the last thing our body wants is to have a baby when we're in fight or flight all the time and like in survival mode. So then what happens is blood flow goes away from the gut, digestion really slows down. So by increasing your carbohydrates and decreasing your cortisol levels, digestion will actually improve. Plus then you're going to have more fiber intake, because fiber typically comes from carbohydrates. So carbs actually play a super important role. And the more active, the more stressed out you are, the more severe your menopausal symptoms are, likely the more carbohydrates you need and more calories.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that's one of the big things that people struggle with, like you said, is eating carbs. That's most people, that's what they're going to. They're going towards that, oh, they're afraid of carbs. And it's like, I love watching your Instagram post, because I'm like, it's the carbs.
Yeah, the damn carbs.
We push our carbs a ton. And like, honestly, it helps with energy level. It helps with brain fog, sleep improves. Like having a slow digesting carb paired with a protein before bed will like improve your sleep exponentially. Like that's things that people notice right away. Like, and their energy is just so much better. Like when you're not having carbohydrates, like it's supposed to be something like you need to have at least a minimum of like 1 gram or 3 grams, 2 grams. It's like a certain amount per pound of body weight.
Yeah, so I was gonna
Like recommended. So like usually want to have a minimum of 130, like that's just like minimum, that to like be able to help your nervous system, your brain, blood cell production. Like you need carbohydrates, and no, it's not essential. Like people will like freak out when I say that. Technically you can survive without carbohydrates, like survive, but I don't want to just survive. Like I want to enjoy my life. I want to thrive. I want to feel good. By incorporating carbohydrates, like that's the first thing people notice is like they feel fucking amazing.
that one of like the first things, like when you're working with a patient, you know, you're like, and you're, you know, doing their, and, you know, going through their, analyzing their whole diet and stuff. And you see that, is that like one of the first things, just increase your carbs? And
Yeah.
then-
So typically what we say is like we figure things out, obviously, like typically protein intake's gonna be really low. Calories are usually way too freaking low.
Yeah.
So like increasing calories is first, and your protein. And then we say like carbs to fat ratio doesn't really matter, but typically you want to favor carbs. What the actual number is, I don't really give a shit. Like just make sure you have more carbs than fat. Because most people are not doing that.
Yeah. I think
Absolutely.
we see a lot of, okay.
Yeah. And then with like our typical diet, we tend to eat a lot of high fat. And a lot of it is going to be like omega-6s, which is inflammatory, which is going to, again, increase that cortisol response, increase inflammation even more. Cause like in perimenopause and menopause, inflammation already naturally increases, which really fucking sucks. Fluid retention increases, which already really sucks. So like you're just adding fuel to fire by adding those omega-6s. So like supplementing with omega-3s can be really helpful, just to help with that like inflammation. And let's try to find that in like your regular foods, whether that be through like flaxseed or salmon or tuna or whatever it is that you want to do. It's very helpful.
Nice.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, I was talking to a client last night, and she was actually going like, you know, like she's doing really good. And one of the things is like her fats are, you know, she's like, well, how do I bring my fats down to, you know, kind of her target, right? And I was looking at them, and it was kind of going like, it's good fats, you know? So I was like, well, don't worry so much about it, because it was the good fat, you know, like she's still getting there. But I think that also kind of plays with people, you know, in going like the fat. And it's like, well, you know, if it's a good fat, you know, it's harder. Like an avocado, I can eat a whole avocado, but that turns into, you know, just in a sitting. And what kind of a role does like fats play in when it comes to hormones?
So you do need to have like a minimum level of fats. Like we don't like to see anyone go below 20%, because hormones are derived from cholesterol. Cholesterol comes from fats. So you do need to have some fat in your diet, but honestly, it's not something that I push people to worry about, because we naturally, it sneaks its way in like higher fat, like dairy products, or like higher fat cuts of meat, nuts, seeds, like, you know, all that kind of stuff. It makes its way into your diet. I've never had someone really be too low in fat. Especially in this day and age, it's just not a thing. And then if you have a treat every now and then, like that bumps it up too. So it's not something I worry too much about. I haven't had anyone be too low of fat yet.
Yeah. I noticed they're usually that's an easy one to really get in there. A lot easier than protein, that's for sure. Protein
Yes,
always
yeah.
one that people are like, oh, how do I get it? Low calories. Can you talk a little bit about how the low calories affect hormones and menopause and all of that? Because I know that's a big issue with people doing all these crazy
Totally.
things.
Yeah. So technically like a low calorie diet is less than 1600 to 1500 calories is like medically a low calorie diet. And people are like, are you fucking serious? I'm like, yeah, it is. And like, I always tell people, like, I'm 5'5", I'm 145 pounds. I work out like 3 days a week ish, play volleyball once a week. I'm pretty sedentary now. Like my step count is not that great. Because I'm sitting in front of a computer all the time. But like I eat to maintain anywhere from 2,200 to 2,400 calories a day. And people are like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like,
How do I do it? How do I get that in?
Exactly. And then for me to lose weight, like I'm like 1,900, 1,800, like that's where, like if I'm going into a cut, that's where I am. And most people aren't even eating that at maintenance. So it's like, it's really important to be aware of that stuff. Like eating less and moving more isn't always the answer. Like you need to make sure you put the groundwork in first. The thing is, it's like, okay, so we're going through perimenopause and menopause. This is a time in our life where a lot of things are changing. Like empty nesters, we're taking care of sick parents. Sometimes there's like job changes, sometimes there's relationship issues, sometimes there's financial stuff. Usually you're experiencing losses at this time in your life too, whether it be parents, grandparents, things like that. There's a lot of shit going on. Or like for perimenopause, you might be like rushing around all the time and like taking kids to sports and activities, and you're just go all the time. Add in like stress from work, not sleeping enough, and then you're trying to exercise and do all these crazy HIIT classes, and then you're eating low calorie. Your body doesn't know that you're trying to lose weight. It only knows that it's stress, and doesn't know that it's trying to be good stress or bad stress. It's just stress. So you're adding stress on top of stress on top of stress on top of stress. So then by eating low calorie, you're just making that worse. And during perimenopause and menopause, that's not good, because we know, again, that's going to increase our cortisol levels, which we're already super sensitive to. We're going to see an increase in belly fat accumulation. We're going to see fatigue, brain fog, inflammation. Progesterone is going to drop really quick. Like if you don't get this shit organized before, once you hit perimenopause and menopause, your progesterone will tank pretty quick, because cortisol will actually take the precursor to build progesterone and take it away. So then we're already decreasing progesterone production naturally. Stress is going to decrease that exponentially. And then you're going to see that when people are like, man, I woke up in like 20 pounds overnight, typically that's the progesterone issue. When progesterone drops that aggressively, that's typically where we see that excessive quick weight gain that people are like start panicking about, and then they reduce their calories a ton, and you're actually making it worse. And then you're feeling like garbage, and you're seeing more fluid retention, you're more irritable, libido drops. Like it's basically a whole shit storm. So you have that. That's also going to, again, decrease your thyroid function. Like low calorie diets are shown to do that. It slows down your metabolism. You're going to see negative effects to your estrogen levels as well. So you're going to have all those symptoms that we dealt with at the beginning. So like you're just fighting an uphill battle, and by eating less, you're just making everything worse and just digging yourself a hole that's going to take longer to come out of. The longer that you keep doing this and like fighting it and not reverse dieting and trying to get your calories back up, the longer it's going to take you to get through that reverse dieting process. So you may as well start now and potentially maybe gain like 5 pounds, like do it really slowly, but do it properly, as opposed to waiting and like fighting, doing all these fad diets, cutting shit out, and then having to reverse diet for like a year and end up gaining like 10 to 20 pounds. So it's like, would you rather do this in like 3 to 6 months, gain a few pounds, and then like lose it, keep it off for good, feel amazing, enjoy your life, or just like literally keep doing what you're doing? And they're really dangerous. Like I've worked with women who were eating 800 calories, 1900 calories, 1100 calories for years, and organ function actually starts to decrease because you're eating below what like your BMR is, and your body literally cannot sustain it. You're constantly stuck in fight or flight. You're going to have really poor digestion. You're going to feel terrible. And there's all these negative side effects, and it's going to make all your menopausal symptoms worse. And honestly, the symptoms you get from eating low calorie and perimenopause and menopause are very similar. Most of the time we see women after the reverse dieting process eating enough carbs, within 3 months, like symptoms are gone. So it's like, you need to fucking eat. You need to eat, you need to enjoy your food.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have a question. So is it better to do during this time of life, is it better to do a lot of cardio, like hit the cardio, or do you like feel the strength training is better?
Strength training for sure. So the reason for this is because when we see that drop in estrogen, which is always going to happen, it's all about like menopausal symptoms are all about like balancing everything in ratios to each other. So when we see that drop in estrogen, our body becomes more catabolic. So what that means is our body becomes in a state where it naturally wants to get rid of muscle mass. It's very hard to maintain and build muscle mass once you hit this time in your life. We want to preserve muscle mass as much as we can because it makes us look toned and wonderful. It makes us feel strong, helps us with quality of life, maintaining independence as we age, but also it keeps our metabolism nice and high. Like muscle burns a lot of calories at rest. So we want to maintain as much as we can and build as much as we can. That doesn't mean you're gonna end up being bulky. I've tried to like bulk and stuff. It takes so much work, so much consistency, a shit ton of protein. So like, you're not gonna end up looking at the Hulk, which is what a lot of people worry about. But you want to make sure we're doing strength training because we want to maintain and build that muscle mass as much as we can. If we're doing a bunch of cardio, if we're doing a bunch of HIIT, doing all those boot camp style classes where you're go, you're not resting like 2 minutes in between sets, like you're just constantly on the run, that's a super high cortisol response. Plus women are usually fasting before they work out, which is not smart because that just makes everything worse. But cardio sends a signal to our body, like we're always wanting to be more efficient. So with strength training, our body's like, oh, we need to get better at this. Like that's literally what our body's always trying to do. So it's going to want to build, it's going to want to maintain, but you have to make sure you're eating enough. Whereas cardio, our body's like, oh, we want to get better at running. How do we get better at running, or the boot camps or whatever it is? Pare down muscle mass, because that's really expensive. It burns a lot of calories at rest. Cardio sends a signal to our brain that we want to become more efficient with our calories. So then you might lose some fat, but you're going to lose a ton of muscle mass as well. Then you're going to get that skinny fat look. It's going to increase those cortisol levels. It's going to make it harder for you to sleep. And you're typically going to see belly fat's going to stick around. You're going to be like, man, I lost weight everywhere except this belly. And that's why. So we want to make sure that we're doing our strength training. And if you enjoy cardio, that's fine. Just know that it's not the best for potentially the goals that you might be trying to achieve. But if you enjoy it, like just make sure you're introducing strength training in there as well. The other thing to really be aware of is like a lot of people worry about like cardiovascular health and stuff. Strength training is shown to improve cardiovascular health as well. That's why it's a part of all of our cardiac rehab programs now, especially in Canada. So like, that's really important to note, that it's not going to like decrease your like cardiovascular system. There are still benefits towards that.
Right. Absolutely. So what do you tell your particular clients to do instead of like cardio?
Yeah. So like walking, it's super underrated. Just get your steps in, do your weight training, focus on like getting stronger, take like 90 seconds to 3-minute breaks in between every single set. And when I say that, I mean like sit down, you're going to be like, holy shit, as long as 3 minutes of my life. Yes. But just like learn to get out of that like constant stress, go mentality. Cause like what happens when people are like, I feel so good after, it's like, no, you don't. That's false. You think you feel good, but you're just an adrenaline junkie. Like you're addicted to that cortisol high because you're go rushing all the time. So then when you actually get the chance to like relax, you crash, or like it's uncomfortable because you're not used to it. Like this whole go mentality, it's like the lobster in the water. Like you don't know you're getting boiled up until it's like too late, because you're slowly getting like adjusted to it. It feels normally like, oh, I'm stressed, but I feel like I can handle it well. It's normal. No, like you think that your body is not actually like feeling that, doing that physiologically. It's stressed the fuck out.
Yeah, I think that's a big one, is like a lot of people will use that as, well, I go to the gym to relieve my stress. And I'm like, no, you're just stressing yourself out.
You're just adding it. Yeah, you're just adding to
And
it.
it's a really hard concept to get people to believe and to understand, because psychologically, like you said, it's in their head. They think it makes them feel better. I need to go to the gym. Like, I need to go to the gym like every single day. And that's another thing, like, what is your recommendation to your clients when, as far as how many times or how long a session? Some people, think they just have to be at the gym for hours. I'm like, I don't have that kind of time. I'm like,
No.
20 minutes.
I'm in and out in like 45 minutes to like an hour and a half max, depending. Like if it's a leg day, I really love leg day, and like I'll take really long rest periods and stuff. So that'll be like an hour and a half kind of day, but like 45 minutes in and out, like it doesn't have to be crazy. Go in, practice getting stronger, pick a few lifts and like really try to push yourself. That's way better than like being there forever. Typically like 2 to 3 days a week, full body, great option, like super great option. It doesn't have to be complicated. It might feel like repetitive and stuff like that. And like good programs are fairly repetitive. It's the same movements, just using different like machines or different weights or whatever it is. It will feel repetitive, but that's how you progressively overload. That's how you get stronger. That's how your metabolism builds. And you want to have like some sort of consistency week to week to like make sure we're maximizing like that muscle growth signal.
Yeah.
And honestly, if people come to us with like really low progesterone, really low estrogen, really low testosterone, really high cortisol, we usually get them to stop exercising for 4 to 6 weeks. We get them just to walk. And that's like honestly harder than trying to get people to go to the gym, like getting across that like your body needs time to like reset the pituitary, get everything like back where it needs to be, because like, yes, we're adding more calories, but then you're just trying to push yourself harder. And that doesn't, like, the net equations doesn't work out. Your hormones will not love it. And like rebalancing that shit takes time. So like, there are quite a few clients where I've been like, okay, we need to like, I just need you walking for 4 weeks. And they're like, pardon you. I'm like, you're not going to lose a ton of muscle mass in 4 weeks. I promise you, like, you will be fine. It will be okay. But I want you to sleep. I want you to eat. I want you to walk. That's fucking it. Like, you need to learn to chill the fuck out, Stacey, is basically like how it goes.
Yeah. I think it is a big mental game with people, and because we've been fed that, for so long, that you need to move, like exercising a lot and eat decreasing, like you said, all that stuff. And this society has made us feel like you're lazy if you're not always constantly.
Well, that's just it. Like, it's like, we're always told we have to be productive. We have to be doing things. We have to be like, if like rest is something that's so important, but it's like looked down upon. It's like, oh, you need to rest. Like, we like praise this hustle culture. And I mean, I've done it. Last year I hit burnout severely twice, where I actually took like a month off of work, which like I never do. And like you need to take care of yourself. Rest is super, super underrated. And like, it does wonders for your hormones. If you're not sleeping, you can't lose weight. Like, if you're super stressed out, you can't lose weight. You need to take care of yourself, and realizing that like rest is productive. Like, that doesn't mean that you're lazy. Rest is productive.
Yeah. I like my when I need them.
Wow, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see if Sharon or Tabby have any questions. Ladies, do you have any questions for Stephanie? Either of you guys can unmute yourselves if you want. I know you might be working, but or type it in the chat. Oh, Tabby.
Hey, I had a question about swimming and how, like, what would be recommended for swimming workout?
So like, swimming is going to be more cardio based. You aren't going to get any like loading on the joints or bone either. So it would be more just like cardiovascular health, to be completely honest, maybe like some mobility stuff as well. You can incorporate that as you like. It's like, again, it's more of like cardio. So you still want to make sure that you're doing strength training, especially with like bone density stuff. As estrogen decreases, we have a reduced ability to actually pull calcium into the bones. So we want to make sure that we are doing like some impact of some sort during your week, because just for that alone, and then also for like the muscle building response as well. But like, if you enjoy it, like, it's a really great way to take pressure off the joints, get some movement, get your heart rate up. But you do want to make sure that you're still incorporating some strength in there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sharon, do you have any questions, hon?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay. Perfect.
So is there any supplements, because people are always looking for all these different
Yeah.
supplements to help them with their hormones, and I have a whole laundry list of them all the time. What would you recommend if people have or having like hot flashes and all that, because you see all those marketed out there? What do you?
So the first thing is make sure you're sleeping, make sure you're eating enough, make sure you're having carbs. Those are the three things. If you're not doing those three things and you think supplements are going to help you, you're wrong. So like, those are like the three things that you need to focus on first. Things that are helpful to take, we have 4 that we recommend for most women. So the first is omega-3s. We touched on that before, because we have a higher inflammatory response once we are going through perimenopause and menopause. Omega-3s help counteract that. So again, try and get in your diet, but supplementing with omega-3 is really good. The second one is vitamin D. This is because like naturally we tend to be more like deficient in that in general, but it also helps with calcium uptake to deal with the bone density issues that we experience during perimenopause and menopause once estrogen decreases. The third one is vitamin B complex, especially if you're someone who was on hormonal birth control, like an IUD, a Depo, things like that. Within 3 years, you tend to be super deficient in vitamin B. Vitamin B is very important for like detox pathways and stuff like that as well. So taking a vitamin B complex is super great. And the fourth one is magnesium biglycinate, taking that at nighttime with food. The reason for this is, again, it's like a full body anti-inflammatory and relaxation, and it's going to help your body sleep a bit better as well. Always start with the lowest dose and then increase as needed, but try and take it with food if you can, because it can upset people's stomachs sometimes. And that when you take evening, vitamin B take in the morning, because it will increase energy levels. So if you take vitamin B complex at nighttime, you will probably not sleep well. And if you do not be alarmed if your pee turns like greenish yellow, that happens with vitamin B complex sometimes as well.
So on the vitamin D, I've heard there's what is it, vitamin K, or there's something, I don't know, like you see those other
Yeah, they come together.
They come together. Is that recommended? Because I've heard people go, oh, you have to take this and
You can, you don't have to. The biggest thing of vitamin D is make sure you have it with fat. Like, so make sure you eat when you have it, because it is fat soluble. So if you don't have any fat in your stomach when you are taking it, uptake won't be as good.
Okay. And of course, omegas, I usually, you got to eat with those, otherwise you.
Yeah.
I always recommend that one at night, so you don't have to worry about it. You know, sometimes some people, like I get, burping the fish
Oh
oil,
yeah,
yeah, depending on what I've eaten.
yeah, totally.
That'll make me nauseous, but all right, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was very helpful. I appreciate your time, Stephanie.
Of course.
Like
Oh.
writing all kinds of notes. I mean, there's always new stuff.
Anytime.
Especially I'm in that, like I said, I'm 54, I'll be 55 in June. And yeah, I've had so many friends hit menopause, and and that was another one I was going to ask you about, hit menopause, like, or perimenopause, because right, we're in perimenopause and then you hit menopause at that year point, or that was one of the questions about it. Like, when do you know you've hit menopause as opposed to perimenopause?
Yeah, so it's like a full year without a cycle. However, like the years leading up to it, like perimenopause can last a fucking long time. Because like as soon as like you start having these symptoms, as soon as your period starts to fluctuate, like that can be years. People are like, I just need to survive this. I'm like, do you want to just survive for like 5 years? Like that's not me. Like I want to enjoy all of it. So
that would be it.
It's
Like
important to be proactive about it.
the fluctuations, because that's what I was talking to the person I was talking to last night, and the same thing, like she'll have it and then it'll just be spotting, and that's how I am. I'm like, I don't even have a full-blown period anymore. I just kind of have like, I could just basically wear a liner because it's just like spotting, and I'm like, I'll get cramps, and I'm like, the first of every month, it's still that, but I've never been one to have like heavy flow. And so even, after all my kids and everything, it's just been, so I'm going like, am I? And then my temperature at night fluctuates, I'll be hot, cold. I find a cool spot and then I get warm and then I move. And then like I'm constant, my fiance is like, seriously stop. Cause he's a light sleeper. And I'm like, I'm moving all over trying to find the cool spot. And that's one of the things I notice is I've not had that, like, well, I'll get hot once in a while. I don't know. I'm like, can I get tested for it?
You can get tested to see where like your levels and stuff are. But it's menopause is literally like the year that you go like a full 365 days without a period. So like before that, like, you can tell when your body's changing. Like you don't need to test for that. You're like, things don't feel right. You're probably right.
Okay. Yeah. So then I'm probably there, but I'm just a late bloomer. I'm like, maybe I'm dodging the bullet because it's and all my friends are going like these hot flashes. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have those yet.
Honestly, like eating enough is one of the best things that you can do for hot
That's
flashes.
what I'm always wondering, if maybe I'm just because of, my health, where I'm at. I'm alleviating. And then I had the IUD, what do you call it? Not that one of them I had in, and they were like, that helps alleviate the marina
That's what I have.
helps alleviate the symptoms. So I kept that sucker in for about 10 years. I mean, I got it changed out, but
Yeah.
that helped alleviate. When I started wondering about how I was feeling, I just had them take it out. And so I haven't had it in 2 years now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and it can take time to bounce back from that. And like for you, I would say for sure, make sure you're taking a vitamin B complex, because like your vitamin B levels will be low for sure.
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Double check all that. Well, good to know.
All right. Well, again, thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Stephanie, where can everybody find you at?
Yeah, so on my socials like TikTok and Instagram, I'm vitalityoet.stephanie. And then you can find me on Facebook at Stephanie Fusnik, Fusnik.
Perfect. Well, we appreciate your time again. You have a wonderful day. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, ladies.
Thanks, lady.
Bye.